slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't.
How to not bonk during a marathon, one of the most important questions that most middle distance to long distance, especially long distance runners that are focusing on competing in this event, ask. I will tell you honestly, I have hit the wall, the so-called wall. When you run out of it's a mixture of a lot of things. It's most of the time you hit the so-called wall or you bonk in a marathon by dehydration, going out way too anaerobic in the first stages of the race. You're trying to run someone else's race and you're just getting too excited and getting too mixed up in terms of pacing. Okay, improper pacing is one of the biggest reasons why most runners bonk in the marathon. Again, one of the biggest reasons aside from that is dehydration. You're not taking in enough fluid, and you try to start drinking too late in the race. Okay. That being said, you do not have to hit a wall. You do not have to bonk in the marathon. When I ran 2:19:35 at the 2007 California International Marathon, I did not hit a wall. That being said, I was in severe pain in the last 3 miles of that race. Okay, I was still at 2:16 marathon pace. I was 1:44:05 at the 20-mile mark, 5:11 mile pace at the 20-mile mark, 32K mark. But I ended up averaging 5:19 mile pace for the 26.2 miles. So I was basically running 5:30s, 5:40s for the last 6 miles of that race. That averaged it out from 5:11 at 20 miles to 5:19 at the finish line. But again, you want to make sure that if you're training sufficiently in training, if you're doing long runs like I talk about in other videos, if you're doing faster, varied pace long runs, and again, if you're doing a solid mixture of varied pace long runs where you're running at VO2 max, you're running at your lactate threshold, you're running very easy aerobic mileage during those long runs, and then you're following up the following week with an easy relaxed long run so that you can adapt to what you're throwing at yourself. If you're training sufficiently enough each week at your lactate threshold or faster than your lactate threshold, and you're doing quality mileage rather than just junk miles, your chances of succeeding and not hitting the wall and bonking in the marathon is going to elevate. It's going to go much higher, okay? And also paying attention to your pacing in these longer races. It's so important, and staying as relaxed as you can. Okay, hitting the wall is definitely not fun. You're running out of glycogen. Your body is basically burning fat, relying on its fat storage, and you've completely just about run out of carbohydrates. And again, if you've neglected your nutrition in the race and you're not taking it in gels, you're not taking in any electrolytes in the race, you're basically running. Most of the athletes that are bonking in these races, again, it's, as I mentioned before, it's a combination of they're just going way too anaerobic, they're running too fast too soon in the race, and it catches up to you. I mean, I've made the mistake too. Earlier in my career, I started running marathons in 2002, had no idea what I was doing. Debuted at the 2002 New York City Marathon as a part of a Armed Forces charity team. We started in 32,189th place, dead last. We weren't allowed to start the race until every runner had crossed the start line. And for every runner that we passed, once we were allowed to start, Chase Manhattan Bank was donating $1 to lung cancer research. And that was my start as a marathoner. I finished as the team's top finisher in 257th place, starting in last. So I was able to pass the majority of the runners in the race. Ran 2:43:36, or if you look at the results, it's like 2:51, but that's including the time that all 32,189 runners had, to cross the start line. So my chip time, my net time, my finish time was 2:43:36, but it took me another 5 years of running from 2002 to 2007 to lower my PR from 2:43:36 to 2:19:35. Okay. But one of the biggest reasons I was able to make those jumps was consistent, heavy training. tenacity, making sure that whatever you're going after for in the marathon distance, you really have to badly want this. It's not something you either have a choice to be lukewarm about it, be good and be really driven, and be absolutely white hot, immersed in what you're doing. Okay, we all have the choice of how good we want to be as athletes or whatever we want to do in this life. Okay, it's really, it comes down to your focus, your drive, what is causing you to have these goals that you have in terms of distance running and running faster in the marathon distance. That's going to pull you along. There's going to be days where you're going to question yourself. You're going to wonder, can I still do this? If maybe you've been away from the sport for many years, and you're out there by yourself, and there's not anybody to train with, and nobody's pushing you. There's nobody on the track doing workouts with you. There's nobody out there handing you water or handing you, electrolytes during your long runs. You have to decide for yourself how badly you want success. Okay. Over the years too, I had that. I didn't always have athletes to train with. Okay, it took me several years. I started running in 1992, so really, in my opinion, it took me from 1992 to 2007 to run 2:19 for the marathon. I did not bonk during that time. Even in my second fastest marathon that I ran at the 2011 Monumental Indianapolis Marathon, I finished in 2:26:42. I didn't hit a wall in that race, and I didn't bonk in that race. The mistake I made, which I always tell athletes, is make sure that you eat your breakfast 3 hours prior to the start of your marathons. Don't eat it an hour and a half or even 2 hours before the start of your marathon. You want to get rid of that waste. You don't want to have to jump in a porta-john like I did. I was running with the leaders of that race. I was practically leading the race several miles of that race, mixing the lead with other athletes, other Kenyans, and a couple other top Americans that were in that race. It cost me. I had to jump in a porta-john at mile 17, jumped out. I probably lost 2 to 3 minutes on my finish time. I finished in 2:26:42, but really I probably would have ran that day around 2:22 or 2:23. Okay, and it's just a mistake that I made, and that I always remind athletes: make sure you have that breakfast 3 hours prior to the start of your race. But again, those two races, I didn't bonk. I did not hit a wall in those races, but I did hit the wall. I did bonk in my earlier marathon races. An example of that would be the 2007 Grandma's Marathon. Okay, this was several months before I ran 2:19. I did PR that day. I ran 2:40:02. I went out the first half of the race in 1:10:31, which at that time was my PR for the half marathon. Okay, I went through the 20-mile mark in 1:53, a little over an hour and 53 minutes, which was 2:28 marathon pace, and then completely bonked in the last 10K. Practically walked and jogged the last 10K and ran 2:40:02. So I've made mistakes as well. Okay, everybody loves to talk about their fastest times and what they ran and things like that, but it's another thing when you DNF or when you have a few poor races or poor workouts. That the objective here is for you to maintain your enthusiasm. Make sure that you understand that the marathon distance is not a 1,500. It is not a 5,000. It is not a 10,000 on the track. It's not a 10K on the roads. This is a different beast. You have to make sure that you're strong mentally to handle running 42.2K or 26.2 miles. Your nutrition is absolutely vital so that you don't bonk in the race. Okay, a lot of runners are not taking in gels during these races. Okay, 4 to 5 gels. That's like 500 to 650 calories that you could ingest during your race. That goes directly into your bloodstream immediately. You definitely want to take in some fluid. Make sure you take in some water with these gels. But I think that bonking is not something that you have to experience. Okay, most of us have experienced bonking or hitting the wall in the marathon race, and it's a much more fun event if you can get to the start line in peak shape and you can get to that finish line in record time, and because you've done everything properly prior to the start of your marathon, and most importantly during your marathon. You're drinking in the race, you're not sipping in the race. Okay, even if you have to stop at an aid station for a few seconds to stop and drink a couple Dixie cups down immediately, do so. It's much better to do that than to run past the aid stations and grab a Dixie cup and 90% of the fluid falls out because you grabbed the cup and most of it went out. Most of it fell on the ground. Okay, so it's very important to do that. Make sure, as I always talk about in other videos, make sure that you're hydrating during your long runs. Drop your water bottles out 3 miles to 5 kilometers every 3 to 5 kilometers. Okay, get in the habit of taking in some gels during your long runs and see how your body reacts. See how it gives you a better understanding of how your stomach feels during your long runs and how much fluid that you can ingest during these long runs as well. I know there's other options. You can carry those fanny packs, around your waist during long runs, so that you can have some fluid on you. There's those handheld bottles that you can run with as well, so that you can ensure that you're drinking throughout your long run as well. But again, this all comes down to you improving your efficiency in training so that you don't bonk in the marathon. I hope this video is helpful for all of you. If you have any other questions regarding the marathon or anything else that's on your mind, let me know in the comment section below. I will definitely respond to you, and definitely go to RunDreamAchieve.com. There is a lot of different resources, from training plans, running courses, as well as monthly coaching that I work with one-on-one with other athletes as well, if that's something that you're interested in. So thank you so much for all of my subscribers, all of you who leave comments, who like these videos. I could not do this without all of you as well. So thank you so much, and I'll talk to you all in the next video.